Hello, 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 hello. So, my previous video, I basically stated some of South Africa's economic problems. There may be more, there may be less. But look, every problem has a solution, and it will be totally unfair to not suggest there are solutions. And you don't even need that much creativity. Okay, creativity will make it much better, right? If we can create something out of the dust. Luckily, there are other models and examples we can follow. I have one criticism about, people who use examples. We need to be very careful when we use examples of what other countries have done to say, okay, we just need to implement this in South Africa and it will work. Okay, I have heard people on the neoliberal side, the neoliberal white side, suggesting that neoliberalism will work in South Africa and will give us 6% economic growth. That's nonsense. And it simply won't. You can't. That's not how you grow an economy. Neoliberalism has been proven false in numerous instances, and you can't have. Let's assume the economy grows at 6%. A lot of people will be left behind, and then it'll just be a French Revolution 1 year later, or maximum 10 years later. So it's not a solution. Let's be very clear that white neoliberalism is not a solution to South Africa's problems. Second thing, on the far left, black Fanonist economic side, there is this idea that Marxism will work, that will also not work. Marxism has been proven not to work in numerous places. So, we can't do that either. We can go for a totally centrist approach, okay? Now, I'm a bit more in favor of that, but once again, that won't work because, when most countries are actually somewhere in the middle. As I said, the two extremes don't work. Most countries function somewhere in the middle of the spectrum because that's the only thing that proved to work for humans. For Homo sapiens, we evolved to work somewhere in the center of these two systems. For example, fruit bats. I got this from Jordan Peterson. Fruit bats will share fruit with other. If a fruit bat who had a successful gathering of fruit will share this fruit with an unsuccessful bat. But they will only do so, I think, 60 or 70% of the times on the second time they have to share with the fruit bat. So you see, socialism and capitalism basically needs to balance each other out. And that gives us a centrist approach. But look, South Africa has a very unique situation. We had colonialism, then we had apartheid, then we had a super incompetent government after that. So, and then our borders are unnatural. Now we have AI as a new challenge / opportunity, and we have global warming, which is very serious. We will get worse droughts than other areas. We have competitor countries. We have deindustrialization, globalization, friendly, unfriendly, governments towards South Africa. Now in a multipolar world, you'll see countries vying for South Africa's support, and you will see predatory countries, if not trying to colonize us, at least get a company or South African companies to bend the knee towards their interests. So this is the situation we face, which I believe is very unique. Also, what I didn't mention just now is we have so many cultures and religions also in the country. So our situation is very unique. So we need a new approach, okay? Using tried and tested methods, but also a new approach. So I try to think about a new approach. And luckily, I'm not the only one. There's many new ideas from many people much more clever than me, with doctorates in economics and what have you, and in sociology, that basically who are trying to come up with new ideas of how the South African how the South African economy should run. Okay, and that's great. So at least we're starting off somewhere, because it needs to be a conversation. Firstly, it needs to be a conversation, then a debate, and then basically a consensus. Between everyone, all the parties in South Africa. Obviously, the majority gets to have the final say. That's just how democracy works. We are a democracy. But we have to include as broad a spectrum of society as possible. We can't just kick out, for example, transgender Indian people. That will be very unfair. So we need to include everyone in a new South African economic model, period. So let's see what we can do. So I thought about something like a three-tier pipeline for training, okay? Because education is such a problem. So basically, you have basic trades, that's like 3 to 6 months. It's delivered in mobile classrooms and municipal halls. And training will include plumbing, solar panel installation, logistics like forklift lifting, okay, catering, and basic coding. And this will draw from the technical and vocation training strategy of Rwanda, which used mobile workshops in public-private agreements. Now, those of you who don't know, Rwanda is one of the countries in Africa with the fastest growing economic growth rate, and people are not left behind. And Rwanda is like a great thing to learn from, to see where things basically get together. South Africa needs good plumbing because of our water scarcity, and it's only going to get worse. Unfortunately, whether you believe in global warming conspiracy cabal, or whether you basically just recognize that the earth is heating up naturally, we're entering a new ice age, so the earth's getting warmer or something. The consensus is that South Africa will become drier. That's just a fact. So plumbing will be very good. So will solar panel installation, because we get all the heat. And basically, we need more computer coders, because with computer coding, you just need a laptop, you just need an internet connection, and you're connected to a company. So that's very important. Then we have intermediate industrial academies. So basically, each province will host a sector-linked academy. So Limpopo will have agrotech and livestock, because they are already a bit more advanced with agriculture, for example, the Bela farms. Gauteng will have robotics, IT services, and logistics. Gauteng is just the most advanced province in South Africa technologically. I lived there for 3 years. So, in Johannesburg. Johannesburg's very advanced, and it's very easy to just upgrade the stuff there that's already in existence. Then we have the Eastern Cape automotive parts, Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz. So we need to make ourselves more investor friendly, so we can expand the Eastern Cape for auto manufacturers, and even try to bring in new brands. So there needs to be a discussion with auto manufacturers as soon as possible to basically at the very least maintain what we have, preferably expand, to see do we have any auto workers who have been fired in the last 5 or 10 or 20 years, and try to get them back into the industry. I am not a fan of let's say doing things in an inefficient way. If we're not competitive in comparison to, let's say, Indonesia, we should switch over to different industries. But we are competitive in auto manufacturing for now, and I think we can do better. So let's go on. KZN, KwaZulu Natal. There we have basically port logistics. Durban is a fantastic port. So Durban is just, really broken, and I think there's two possibilities here. First is to fix the port, and that is like a fantastic way to create jobs. First, like just to rebuild some stuff that's just been broken down to the foundation, so we can get contractors in to fix that. Then those same contractors will go into maintenance because the port is so busy. Like, it's the busiest port in South Africa, even busier than Cape Town. And we can then basically, you have the port economy, which will basically not just serve Durban city. Durban is Durban the capital of KwaZulu-Natal, or is it, what's the other place, Umlazi? I don't know, I'm sorry. Essentially, so Durban basically drives the province then. And tourism. KwaZulu-Natal is a very beautiful place. It's really pretty. It's great for surfing. It's great for, there's some places, it's not that great for scuba, but there are some places you can go for scuba, like, was it Corsi Bay, Sudana, I forgot the name, but it's close to Corsi Bay. Like, that area next to Mozambique is good for scuba. Hiking is perfect for hiking. Kite surfing is great for paragliding, bungee jumping. And all of these things you find in KwaZulu-Natal. Camping, of course. So KwaZulu-Natal is perfect. We just need more security. And for this, we can also bring the community, into like basically the game to, give them money to make the tourists more secure. Sorry, this sounds extremely stupid. It's just the way I express myself. The Free State, water systems and borehole mechanics. So the Free State, is, luckily it's next to Lesotho. Lesotho is like our version of the Andes, or like the Himalayas, and we get a lot of water from Lesotho. But I believe South Africa needs to start relying on more boreholes, like a borehole for, let's say, a vegetable patch, or if you're lucky, a field where, with like what do you call it, drip irrigation, and the borehole can be powered by solar panels, so you don't have these massively long copper cables coming from the main grid. So we can try to do that. That will create a lot of employment. Also, once again, once the construction is done, we go into maintenance, because some of these things will break down, and drip irrigation it will use plastics and stuff. Like, you have to go and see, is the entire field irrigated? Is enough stuff coming through? So we need basically big companies like Toyota SA, ShopRite, MTN, and Bidvest to co-manage our education, because if we get big companies to basically not just cherry pick, but to say, okay, this person has a 0.1 the aptitude, 0.2 the IQ, 0.3 the personality, they can then be brought in for internships and educated further if and when needed. So private sector is investment in education is very important, with the assumption, of course, that government and civil society needs to make business, if not satisfied, at least comfortable enough with investment. That's just how the world works. Look at China. If you invest in China, if you invest in the US, your money's not going to fall down a well and disappear forever. And then basically full ride fellowships for the top students. For example, like India's IT for software and hardware engineering, they get like good scholarships. Germany's Fraunhofer Institutes for Green Energy and Robotics, and China's Tsinghua University for Agri-Tech and AI. So my idea, I've had this for decades, is that students with scholarships, you make a scholarship a bit larger, so more people get drawn in. But once you successfully complete your education, you have to pay the state back with interest every penny. And the idea then is a 5-year completion. I think 5 years is the magical number. And for the state to recuperate this money. This has to be a self-sustainable system. This is not something where the taxpayer should push in extra money. This thing should be self-sustainable. And this is this is a government thing. It will be run by the government, and some private sector, as I said previously, the private sector will give input, like, okay, we need this, we don't need that. But we need a sustainable educational system in South Africa. Free education sounds great, and to a strong extent, I agree with free education. At the very least, for primary levels, you can't if you go into a supermarket, you need to be able to count your change afterwards. You need to be able to draw up a basic budget. You need to, when someone asks you to lay 9 square meters of bricks, you need to be able to do that. That's fine. Okay, or go and buy 20 liters of paint. But when we talk about bigger investments, if we're going to give scholarships to engineers, to psychologists, to nurses, all of these things need to be paid back. So I want to go as far and say not just for medicine and engineering, for everything. And if you've chosen something more exotic, let's say cultural anthropology or archaeology, then I almost want to have the audacity to say this period has to be longer, maybe 20 years. And this will then become indentured servitude, but this is still a voluntary indentured servitude, because you could have chosen something else. You could have chosen to become a TikTok influencer. You could have chosen to take the government up on a basic skills program to just build homes. You could have decided to not take any education at all and just become a business person, running a small business. If you want to do something exotic and you want the state to pay for it, and the state can't get a really good return on investment, because look, architecture is archaeology is interesting. Let's make no mistake about it. I'm highly interested in archaeology whenever they have a find, like these dinosaurs they find in Antarctica these days. That's very cool. And we're getting new hominids from South Africa all the time. And now and then, in some instances, these people can monetize their degrees. But if the degree can't be monetized directly, because I'm talking there has to be a direct return on money, return on value, then the internship should be longer. And there is a benefit to this, because remember, these people are for all practical purposes, they are in academia. Cultural anthropologists can give us a better explanation of how society works. So we won't be as judgmental about other cultures. That may make us less racist. If I can explain to you like about a certain culture or race or religion, each and every aspect perfectly, then you will just accept it, because people are just like, if you give, most people have empathy, 95% of people have empathy and are willing to understand, when something is explained to them. And there is value in these things. All I'm saying is it's not money. That's the problem. And when we're talking about South Africa isn't a failed state. Okay, I am not saying it. I'm not going to say it in any of these videos, but we're flirting with failed state status. So I almost want to say where we should it's almost a war situation. Let's be clear. It's almost a war situation. And when you're in a war, you mobilize the entire population. Like everyone has to, as we say in Afrikaans, bring sy kant. Participate in the project. I don't know if I'm going to mention this or here. I'm just going to mention it here, but I'll mention it again in a different video. The army as well. We should have a 1 year or a 2 year. Actually, let's make it 2 years. Residence, subscription in the army, like South Korea or Israel, just so people can learn some basic manners. Because we have ridiculous things going on in South African schools. Go and have a look at how pupils treat the teachers and each other. We have knife stabbings, teachers are being robbed or pushed around. The other day, I heard of a guy who beat up his grandmother for money to buy drugs. Let's put these people in the army, okay, to learn some basic etiquette and skills. And I'm not saying give the person a gun and teaching them how to shoot, but some of them can, people who are very responsible. We can say people who are very responsible, who are highly emotional, intelligent, and not good people, but let's just say people with a high emotional intelligence that won't become mass shooters or won't start a rebellion. They can obviously do the plain vanilla army stuff that they do in Israel or in South Korea, and that will be useful to fight crime. That can happen. But let's say 80% of the population will be used to do projects, basically dig pit latrines. I know we should actually move away from pit latrines. I'm fully aware of that. But there are places that still don't have pit latrines. So do the basics, or basically do some basic agriculture, create irrigation, fix the roads or make new roads, cleaning of toilets. Now, you'll say to me, how dare you suggest that our children... By the way, you're no longer a child if you are 18 years old. You're a fucking full-grown adult, okay? In the Ice Age, 10,000 years ago, you're an adult even earlier. You were an adult when you're 11, 12 years old. So you're a grown-ass man or woman when you turn 18. Let's be very clear about that. You can drive, you can vote, you can smoke, you can drink, and... you're no longer a child. These days, we refer to 25-year-old people as children. That's ridiculous. I am sorry. But call me an old man. That's fine. I don't mind. I don't care. But, people are irresponsible. The cleaning of toilets. Let the army conscripts, or let the voluntary service, the mandatory voluntary service, let them clean toilets. Why do I say such a stupid, ridiculous thing? Go and look at South African public toilets. Go to the Hasie Park in Benoni. Go and have a look at those toilets. Go and have a look at the toilets in Hillbrow. People don't know, if you dirty something, you should clean up after yourself. That's just how it works. You know, like, this isn't a high class thing. This isn't a Queen Elizabeth thing. You know, she's passed away. Like, this isn't what Prince Charles does. Of course he does it, but like, everyone should do it. You know, and then, like, the person whose job it is then to go and clean the toilet, the person whose full-time job it is to clean the toilet, hopefully they will have robotics by then, but South Africa has so little money, we're far away from, you know, having the investment to get robotics to clean toilets, then it will no longer be a problem. But this like that person then, if they go and clean a toilet, they don't have this disgusting job to do. Or they will have a speck here and there because people clean up after themselves. South Africans don't know how to do this, like, or a very small percentage of the population. Pick up cigarette butts. Pick up the young students, 18-year-old conscripts should pick up cigarette butts. Pick up plastic. Recycle that plastic. Recycle bottles. All these things, you know, that people leave behind, you know, these people should fix so that they get educated. Like, you don't throw like your chocolate wrapper in the bush because another 18-year-old, you were 18-year-old once, like, it's unfair and unethical to throw this thing into the road because some other 18-year-old will have to clean it up. I know how harsh this sounds, but we are in a state of disaster and we need to fix it. Like, if you have a better idea, I am open for this. I'm open for a discussion. And South Africans should talk more, but then come with your idea. You know, like, an idea of, like, you know, getting a foreigner to do it for a lower price is a stupid idea. I'm sorry. You have to come up with a smarter idea, a financially sustainable idea, one that will, like, you know, improve the population, improve the mentality of the population. Like, you know, South Africans have become more corrupt, like companies, civilians, because the state is corrupt. And we should just, like, teach people, you don't bribe. You know, like, a lot of people, you know, white people, for example, who get drunk. I was one of them, full disclosure. Okay, but I'll tell you, I didn't bribe anyone. They will get drunk, they will bribe someone, okay? So that they don't go to jail, because drinking and driving is a criminal offense in South Africa. You know, you should just learn that you don't bribe people. You know, and if you feel the need to bribe people, rather don't be in the situation in the first place where you have to drink and drive. You know, sleep in your car next to the bar, or if it's dangerous to go out, pay the bar owner, you know, $100 or $10 and sleep on the ground inside of the bar, you know, or just have a barbecue at your friend's house. Do something, be creative, be practical, think out of the box, you know, do these things and the country will be a better place. And there's people with many radical ideas in South Africa, and they should come together and they should discuss these things. You know, sorry, this is a tangent. Getting back to what I really want to emphasize here is sustainable education. Education should be sustainable. Now, getting back to what I said earlier, South Africa, because of our history, our unfair and harsh history, and our recent history of whatever you want to call it, like, has unique problems. And then there's, like, external problems that we have to deal with. So there isn't a single model existing in economics or the science of economics that will work. So I'm proposing, well, like I've already told you what I think about I opened with education because I feel that's where, you know, if this is one thing we can fix, it will make a difference. Also, I opened with education because in my mind, and it's been in my mind for years and years, this is a time bomb. Like this 30% pass rate. You need, because we already have enough 35-year-old people who are unemployed. We have enough 35-year-old people who has never been employed in their life, and it's not their fault. Alone. It's mostly not their fault because there's no opportunities. If this person has an engineering degree and they're competent, the probability of them remaining unemployed becomes very low. I just quickly want to jump back to the return on to the sustainable education and the 5-year contract you have to sign as a recipient of a scholarship. The state there can be a trial or a agreement where certain individuals who have displayed responsibility and ethics, we should be like communist China. I'm sorry, no other state has this but communist China. Or let's just say China. China isn't really a communist state, but in China, people are extremely responsible. That's just how they operate. And what we can do if this 5-year internship or what I mentioned earlier for the, let's say, cultural anthropologists or archaeologists, which is not a strongly monetary degree in South Africa and where it may take you 20 years to pay off your degree. In cases like this, maybe allow the candidate to go overseas and have partnerships with our allies like Brazil and China and India, so they can go and work in these countries, which will pay them, let's say, a higher salary, or especially actually in the European Union or in the US, which are also a bit of our allies in the sense that South Africa works with a rule-based order and we obey the rules, they obey the rules. So if you work in the US and you don't spend a lot of money, you can send a lot of that money back home, and so you can, in that way, you can pay back your state scholarship. But okay, you still need to come home. So I can't think about one. Maybe the state can take away your citizenship if you don't come home and never give you a visa so you don't come back in. That sounds like something that's, maybe it will break the human rights clause, some human rights clauses not maybe, it will break some human rights clauses in the South African Constitution. And I am a constitutionalist, but I am very scared of what will happen if the South African Constitution is broken, because it's a new constitution and I think it's a very good constitution. It gives rights to poor people, it gives rights to minorities, and so on and so forth. But because we are in a state of crisis, and one that may become worse, people always think, my life can't get any worse. Yes, anything can get worse, always. That's just how life works. It can always get worse. And some of the clauses in the Constitution may need to be amended so that we have something like this, that if you received a scholarship and we say, okay, to pay off the scholarship, you can go overseas and then you need to come back. If you don't do this, we take away your citizenship and you may never enter the country to see your family and friends. We will be the only country in the world with this, and people will think we are barbarians. And maybe you can characterize that as barbarian, as a barbarian act, and probably it is barbarian. However, we need solutions. Like we need, and if we can't find solutions, at the very least, you need to come up with ideas. What I'm trying to propose here are ideas about how to fix this. And my ideas are very radical because I am a radical centrist. Like, I'm centrist, but I believe centrists don't have the aggression and the radical nature to fight populists and to fight the far left, or not the far left. I almost don't have a problem with the far left and the far right. Like, I'm talking about the extreme left and the extreme right. Centrists, don't have the capability to fight people on the extreme left and the extreme right, and they then also, because there's then, let's say, this massive viral danger from these extremities, let's say the extreme right becomes bigger and more dangerous, then the right wing will say, okay, look, we are not nearly as bad as these guys, but the sentiment seems to go our way. You as centrists should be with us, and then centrists become very vulnerable. Like they will join people who have a wrong agenda, who's not like looking out for the best interest of the country, whether it's left-leaning or right-leaning. And this is just an example. Obviously, it can happen on the left as well. Centrists need to be more radical, more creative, more insistent, more revolutionary, and more aggressive when dealing with far right and far left people, because we can work perfectly well with left-leaning and right-leaning groups, no problem. And I believe more South Africans need to be centrist. But look, I'm also not saying that if you are a member of AfriForum, if you're an Afrikaans person that wants to protect your culture and your land rights and your religion, God bless you. That's your right. That's your opinion at the very least. Okay, and I should respect your opinion. If you are a feminist Marxist guy or lady with a certain agenda, like, okay, let's give all of the land to black Africans, that is fine. Your opinion is fine. You're entitled to opinion. Okay. Now, I'm not saying my way is the only way. I'm just stating that my capability to communicate with both sides of the spectrum is higher than anyone on the left or anyone on the right. That's just a fact. Like, in fact, people like me decide elections. We are the people who usually don't vote, to be quite honest, because we don't like the extreme left or the extreme right, or even the far right or the far left. We don't like them. We prefer being centrist. And you are free to have your right wing or your left wing opinion. That's okay. But you need to realize that centrist people can't and shouldn't be pushed around, because some centrist people, I don't want to say the weak ones, but let's say the impressionable ones, they will buckle under the pressure. I'm not one of those people. And I say to any centrist who's listening to this, you should be like me. You should stand for your values. Okay. And, okay, well, in any case, that's my explanation for a hybrid model for economic recovery in South Africa. So I try to think of new ideas and existing schools of economic thought. So to give you a better idea, instead of just a rant, so far how many minutes are we in? We're maybe 20 minutes in. It's just been a rant. I'm sorry, not sorry. But to give you now a numbers idea of how I've been influenced, or what influence I think each school should have. Developmental economics is 25%. This is the dominant influence on the idea. Why? Because we need rural boreholes. I'm a borehole fan. Township incubators, food security clusters, and infrastructure for employment that should reflect classic developmental priorities. Some examples are the East Asian Tiger strategies, South Korea, Taiwan, and South Africans' own RDP theory. Like, South Africa has the redevelopment and construction plan, but it's not working. That's the problem. Maybe we should then look more at Taiwan and South Korea. When I say Taiwan and South Korea, I mean them emerging from war in that period, where it was chaos and they had nothing, not what they're doing right now. And some of these theorists is Ha Yoon Chang, I think he's from South Korea, Amartya Sen, and Arthur Lewis. Arthur Lewis is famous for developmental economics. Because of apartheid, like how the black population was dealt with, or what they had to experience, and then obviously their most apparently or most obviously their current condition, because of this history, we need to take a developmental stance first and foremost. It's unacceptable for someone to live in a shack with no land rights, unable, to go to a school where they, under a tree, to drink dirty water. Here is one thing, to go to bed hungry. This is unacceptable, so we need to move away from that stuff ASAP, like yesterday. And therefore, developmental economics, 25%. State capitalism, 20%. Why? I proposed state leasing of land and assets to foreign powers, military base monetization, state-owned infrastructure zones, and aggressive deal-making with strategic foreign entities. Example, China's SEZ model, like Shenzhen. I just know Shenzhen. Shenzhen is a fantastic city, by the way. Ethiopia under Meles Zenawi. Meles Zenawi is a nasty guy, but Ethiopia got some stuff done. If you don't believe me, just take Ethiopian Airlines. Very cheap. They fly to almost any place. Russia's energy oligarchy blended with state control. So, yeah, I know Russia has, these semi-feudal guys that control all the energy, but basically it helps the economy. And some people to reference here would be Danny Rodrik and Vladimir Popov. So my idea I've been toying with for a very long time is basically some land leases to foreign countries. China, for example, has food insecurity. We can, with GMOs and with the very careful management of water and land, we cannot just only feed ourselves, we can be a very good country for export. And we can, to make a deal, we can lease some land, not a lot, not everything, but some land, to, let's say, China or to the European Union doesn't have food insecurity. China has food insecurity, they're a great example, but lease some land to them. And that will what the Chinese often do is they bring in their own employees. We tell them, look, we know you guys do this, you're not doing it here. This is a South African employment directive. We want these people, they need to be able to save, our workers need to be able to save money, they need free housing, they need free food. Okay, those are the conditions. Maybe you can let them work 12 hours a day or 16 hours a day, talk to them, but the thing is, let's be more creative about land. How it should be utilized. Because I know land is an emotional thing in South Africa, and there's already a million ideas about land. This is one of my ideas, and I'm also what I want to emphasize about leasing is it should only be a small part, just so we can see how it works. If it works really well, look, if we suddenly get 6% economic growth and 100% employment and a Gini coefficient of 0, that means like there's no inequality in the country. Lease all of South Africa to China. I don't care, if we have such a good outcome. That's obviously not guaranteed at all. So we need to experiment. Just give them a small amount and see what they can do. And if the workers like it, if the community like it, if the stakeholders like it, if the government likes it, if the voters, the general population likes it, if the church and the NGO likes it, the political parties, we can continue with that. But let's, at least see how it works. Then another idea I have is basically military-based monetization. Now, this is a dangerous one because obviously if we allow a US or a base on our territory, China will see it as a threat, and vice versa. If China opens a base in Simonstown in Cape Town, the US will see it as a threat. Now, my proposal is more simple, especially in this de-globalization that we are having. This is one of the problems that is still to truly hit South Africa is de-globalization. But in this de-globalized world, piracy, as I share I like Peter Zion a lot. A lot of his predictions are radical, but I think it's worth noting. Now, he predicts a return of piracy, at the very least, insecurity. People have transportation rackets where you'll have people saying, okay, you can pass through my water, but give me, $10,000 or whatever. Tell the Chinese you can put up a base in Durban. Tell you can put up a base in the Eastern Cape. Tell the Americans you can have a base in Simonstown. Tell the Brazilians you can have a base in Port Nolloth. Tell the Indians you can have a base in, what do we have left? Richards Bay, or the Eastern Cape, Port Elizabeth. 5 different countries. Some of them are our allies, some are, well, I'm not going to call America an enemy because we have an economic surplus with the United States. We don't have one with China. We just give China money and stuff and we're getting nothing back. But China is our political ally. However, because we make so much money from the Americans, we cannot ignore the Americans. So I'm saying, we tell all these states, look, Africa isn't 100% secure, especially the south. And if you take the Suez Canal out of the Goddamn Suez Canal, if you take the Suez Canal out of the equation, trade has to come past Southern Africa. You can take trade by rail from China to Europe, I guess, but Russia is also a dodgy character, not you Russian people, I mean Vladimir Putin, or any strongman, who may come after them. The most reliable way will be around South Africa. However, this is not guaranteed. There can be if South Africa collapses into a Venezuela, it will become a zone for piracy, obviously. So why not preempt this by putting foreign military bases in South Africa? Then it's solved, And what we tell them. In return, we want $1 billion per year per base. And okay, if any one of your soldiers like violate, let's say, one of our people in some way, you can have an American prison in South Africa with two sets of guards, American and South African. So we make sure they fulfill their sentence, because we know what happened in Japan, right? Like some very nasty things that some Americans did in Japan with the bases. So we want the community, we want the stakeholders to like these bases, and we want to make a lot of money from these bases. That will also enable us to reduce our budget for the Navy, which is non-functional in any case, but then we'll have more spare cash. We will save money and make money at the same time. That's what I'm saying. And to make sure we're not pissing anyone off, we emulate the model of Djibouti. Or those of you who don't know, Djibouti is that small African country in the northeast, and they have I think not even 5. They've got 7 bases, like Japan, China, India, France, the UK, the US, and Germany or something. They have a lot because of the piracy, and we should do that too, I think. And I think we can make money from it. So I think we can get both security and money. Also remember, if there's a military base of a foreign country like in South Africa, you can say, okay, if there's suddenly a massive wave of crime for some reason, you can say, okay, under one of our commanders, a South African officer, you can give us maybe 5 troops per commander to quell this, and obviously also with some American oversight. So it becomes a partnered operation to restore order. So we can also help the police in this way, because remember, crime is a massive problem that we will also need to address. But I'll get to that later. Then neoliberalism, but pragmatic neoliberalism. I have no desire for South Africa to end up like Chile. Chile is the poster child of neoliberalist failure, where you have the blonde, tall, blue-haired people in Santiago in the east, and the short brown people who are extremely poor in the west. One of my friends is Chilean, and he made a little, not an Excel, but a table of the budget of a native Chilean person living in the west of Santiago on minimum wage. That person barely survives. And Chile is an advanced country, the most advanced country in South America. However, the poor barely survives. And I've been to the fanciest suburb in East Santiago. What was it called again? I lived in Las Condes, which is also in the east of Santiago, very fancy. By the way, I didn't live alone. I didn't have the money for that, obviously. I lived with a friend, a landlord, and she gave me a big discount. But in any case, so I lived in an area close to it, but I did not live in the fanciest area. The fanciest areas are insane. You have to see the wealth, the amount of wealth there is. But it's because of unfettered, unstopped, rampant neoliberalism. They have reduced it. But the legacy of Augusto Pinochet, the dictator who invited the Milton Friedman, the father of neoliberalism, and his students, the Chicago boys, he invited them into Chile, and they created this disaster. And you can see the scars of neoliberalism to this day. Just like you can see the scars of apartheid to this day, Chile's the same shit. So, don't come to me with some stupid idea about how neoliberalism will work. It just won't. Why? However, I'm saying 15%. Okay, some of it. Why? Deregulation, relaxed labor laws, tax breaks for capital investment, and ease of doing business reforms and privatization through leasing. Some examples include Chile post-1990, Ireland in the 1990s and 2000s, post-apartheid gear framework in spirit. All of South Africa's economic policies and ASGISA, gear, NDP basically failed. They have a lot of positive things that came through. It's not a total failure, but it fell very short. If you have a score of between 0 and 100%, each of these probably got 45%. So it's not like nothing was done. It's just, it didn't work. And basically, the caveat is that it's pragmatic. It's not doctrine, okay? The state remains in oversight. Basically, talking about why we need some neoliberalism in South Africa is very obvious. Basically, regulation is strangling business. I'm not a businessman, but there's many anecdotes to be found on the internet, in newspapers, news sites, of business people complaining about how difficult it is to do business. It can take months. What's that channel? Biz News on YouTube in South Africa. That's a good channel, by the way. But there's another one, Mike Shum, State of the Nation. And Mike Shum said it takes months to open a business in South Africa. He said you can open a business in Burundi in one day. Okay, can compare South Africa to Burundi for 1 second and think about that. So deregulation. We need to deregulate. With capital investment, I'm not a tax break person, but if there's no investment, and that is like what I referred to in the previous videos quite a bit, there is a huge problem, and something that will that will stretch very far, will go a far way to help South Africa to become normal again. Not sarcastic things, just like more of a normal country, would essentially be tax breaks for capital investment. Make it easier, make it more attractive for people to come. If you want to attract women, you use cologne. You don't use you don't spray yourself with vinegar. You spray yourself with cologne. It's like that, easy. And privatization through leasing. I'm not a privatization person. I say this because if you look at China works perfectly. The state owns the railways, the airlines. They don't own Alibaba, but they have a fair amount of control about how it's run. And it's just, it really works nice. In the UK, the railways were nationalized in the 60s because capitalism was out of control, and trying to save money, they essentially just made a mess of it. There was so many accidents that it was nationalized. So I'm not a proponent of privatization per se. However, South Africa has become so broken that only someone with initiative, or someone who can receive an initiative a positive thing, will invest. And therefore I say something like Eskom, South African Airways, is almost irreparably broken. Because it's almost irreparably broken, give it to the private sector. We have no more options. We have tried the options, it failed. Unless you want to give it to China, if China wants to run it or the US wants to run it as a government, then you can form a deal, basically go for it. That's another thing that, South Africa should do while I'm on this neoliberalism aspect is basically aggressive deal making. So remember, capital is free to come and go, but still be a bit like Donald Trump. Try to figure out a deal. You shouldn't sign a weak deal. You should always go, this is basic capitalism. You should go out and you can see what's the best you can get for your product. Then I have institutional economics, 10%. Why? It has an emphasis on the rule of law, anti-corruption mechanisms, data transparency, public procurement reform, judicial review, and property rights. So, South Africa needs more rule of law. It's kind of lawless. It needs better institutions, like anti-corruption. If you look at the books, which I'll strongly recommend, Why Nations Fail, and the other one is The Narrow Corridor. Both are written by this American-Armenian writer, something Amuglu, something like that. In any case, very smart guy, like American. He wrote these two books. Read those books. And then you'll see that the one thing that basically that makes the one trait shared between all successful countries is strong institutions, good institutions. And South Africa doesn't have that. I'm trying to think about one. SARS, the South African Revenue Service, is apparently one of the best, but even that has been weakened. It started weakening. Cyril Ramaphosa weakened it. I don't know if Zuma weakened it. I don't think so. I can accuse Zuma of a million things, but that won't be one. Basically, public procurement reform. We need the most. You will always hear me say this: efficient, effective, optimal, meritocratic. Basically, it should be like this for any procurement activity. I am afraid to say here I'm against triple BEE. For anyone, this is almost like cancel my channel type of thing to say, but I am sorry. If you can tell me, let's just make it a binary, okay? And I'm not a fan of binaries, by the way, because there's always a spectrum. Things are very complicated in life. It's science, it's physics, it's how the Earth works. I know things are complicated, but if I can use one binary and I ask you, does triple BEE bring investment money in? Does it optimize systems? Will it optimize the airways, or will it hinder the airways? Just those two things. Because who will say no? Think about it, literally. Which white person in his or her right mind, unless it's a far-right supremacist, and fuck them, by the way, because they are not well in the head in any case, if it's not a white supremacist, which white person in their right mind will say no to triple BEE if it makes something better? If SAA, South African Airways, becomes better, if Eskom suddenly starts working and it gives enough energy for economic growth, if the list goes on and on, if triple BEE helps these things and works, by all means, do it. Do more of it. Do it for everything as much as you can. But if it hinders it, then don't do it. Because we have already so many problems, we don't need another one. I know we had horrible apartheid, and apartheid was a crime against humanity. Like, I know that. But we have all of these disasters, we need to solve them. If they are solved, and they're solved in a good way, it will also be a fair way. So remember, if we have, like, let's just take transportation. If we have optimal transportation, then everyone in society will benefit from this, because everyone has to take a taxi somewhere. Everyone has to take a railway somewhere. Everyone has to drive somewhere sometime. Now and then you fly. Now and then you have to take a ship. If all of these things are optimal, everyone will benefit, because you have to go to work, you have to go to see clients, you have to go to meetings, you have to go out to do quotes, you have to go out to hustle. Whatever you have to do, you need transport. And if you can improvise, if you can like optimize transport, just that one thing, for example, then the system will work better. Okay, so that's kind of my argument. Like, so don't be angry at me. If you have a better way of not thinking, if you have a better idea than me, fine. Like, please write it in the box with some, like, practical, like, ways to, let's say, do procurement in an optimal way that, let's say, is still fair, or something like that. You know what I'm saying. Then ordoliberalism, or German-style market order, 8%. Why? Strict rule enforcement, anti-cartel and anti-capture measures, investor protections with legal arbitration, and pro-competition governments. Example is basically Germany's post-war economy and its EU regulatory models. And the key thinkers for this is Walter Eucken and Wilhelm Röpke. So, look, I'm not, and this is not about pushing eugenics or, superiority in any way. It is not. But if you want something done, like, properly and on time and effectively, you ask a German. There's a reason, like, everyone wants a Mercedes-Benz. It's because it's a good car. There's a reason, like, those of you who know automation, there is, like, this thing called the PLC, Programmable Logic Computer, and there's this brand called Siemens. If you want the best PLC, you get a Siemens. Okay, you're going to pay for it because it's very good, but you get it because it never fails. And PLCs, for example, Programmable Logic Computers, these are the things that drive mines, they drive factories. It's what, it controls transportation. They're in trains, they're in aircraft. They control everything. Whenever you see automation, and if it's important stuff, if it's stuff that may or cannot fail, it's Siemens. Siemens is German, and they've got strict enforcement about quality. I know here and there's weaknesses, like in their military, but for example, if you look at, was it the Tiger tank? Also, it's a very and the Taurus missile. The Taurus missile is the best in Europe, okay, and one of probably the best in the world, God knows. But basically, the Germans get stuff done. That's what I'm really trying to say. So South Africa isn't Germany, definitely not. That's why I say only 8%. We just, South Africa isn't Germany. Germany didn't go through apartheid. Germany wasn't colonized. In fact, Germany was a colonizer. Germany didn't have an incompetent government. However, they did go through a devastating war. And remember, this sounds controversial, but the Germans were also victims of Nazism. Like, essentially, a lot of them were it's a bit like Iraqis as well. Like in Iraq, if you want to progress in society, you essentially have to be a member of the ruling party. And it was the same in Nazi Germany. So a lot of people, like, no, I'm not going to say that. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, you German Nazis, you started the war, blah, blah, blah. But most of the population were also victims of Nazism. And their country was like severely punished after World War II. It was severely punished after World War I, but it was even more punished after World War II. And by the way, for those of you who don't know history, those of you who know history, I don't need to say this but World War II, one of the biggest reasons for World War II was like Germany was screwed over in World War I, like in the peace agreement. World War I, by the way, was started because of these European countries fighting over places like Africa, fighting for economic dominance. So let's just put it into context. This destroyed Germany, okay, and the German people. Like it was ruins. Like go and have a look on the internet. Like German, like Dresden. Dresden was bombed to rubble. To make it worse, the country was divided in two. Or it was actually divided into four, which like 3 parts later became West Germany and 1 part remained East Germany until 1989. But basically, West Germany built I know they had a lot of help from the Marshall Plan. But remember, like how you will know someone who received money, let's say a cousin or whatever, like from your parents, or you borrowed money to them, and all they did is they bought alcohol, or they bought 5 super expensive dresses, and you meant the money to go towards their education, for example. We all know someone like that, okay? With this Marshall Plan money, the Germans didn't do that. They went to work and they fixed their economy. Not only did they fix their economy, they improved relations with their neighbors who they screwed over, and they basically, made everything better. So all countries can learn something from Germany. However, Germany isn't South Africa. So that's why it's only ordoliberalism seems awesome, but we can only apply about 8% of this. Then public choice and anti-corruption theory, about 7%. So I want life sentences. I've been thinking about this for years. I want life sentences for corruption. Corruption should be treated like murder. Okay, it should be treated like violations, because that's what China does. It works for China. So, and look at how successful China is. In China, they know there is a serious punishment if you're caught out for corruption. I know there is some corruption in China, but in general, there isn't. And there isn't because the law is harsh. They will come after you. So in South Africa, we get people, corruption, like Jacob Zuma, he gets a 5-year sentence. He spends one night at the police station, not even in a cell. He's just there talking to the police, and he gets off scot-free, and there's, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people, South Africans, who are corrupt. Of course, we can't, and across all strata of society, okay, except maybe the very poor, because they have no money to give as like bribes. But race, across all races, across all like religions, whatever age groups, there's corruption. What I'm saying is go for the big fish. Make examples of them. whether it's a foreigner, because remember, for each bribee, there's a briber. So if it was a German company like SAP who bribed a South African to get a contract, you basically charge that guy. And you tell the German government, we want him in South Africa. You set up an Interpol notice, and you get them in South Africa and you charge them. And that goes for any foreign country, and in South Africans too. Like life sentences for corruption. Like, as I said, we're in a disaster mode. We need to fix this. Then basically we can also streamline bureaucracy, and we can improve electoral oversight, because South Africa's, at least, we're way better than Europe and the United States when it comes to people claiming that we are corrupt. Our elections are stolen. They're not. South Africa is extremely democratic. However, there's still some people who come with stupid conspiracy theories. I want there to be no conspiracy theories. Like, there should be no contestation. If there's no contestation, then South Africa looks more investor friendly. So that is what I want. So, for example, you have, like, getting back to anti-corruption and public choice, you have, like, for example, Italy's anti-mafia commission. Okay, so it's like the mafia was a massive problem in Italy, starting I'm not an Italian historian, but it's about 100 years old, and it basically started becoming a serious problem in the 60s and 70s, where the mafia started planting bombs, car bombs in Italy, transnational crime with the US and other places, South America. And Italy, people started protesting, like mass protests, and then Italy has had many governments, it's almost like once a year they will have a different government. But the governments started realizing the Italian people are fed up, and if there's one issue that will go from election to election, it will be anti-mafia stance or wish from the people. So they set up this commission, and mafia crime indeed went down. The mafia literally had to go to ground, live in some small little apartment, or in a bunker underneath some small little house in an Italian village to escape the Italian police. So it's not perfect, obviously, but it shows what can be done if you really put your mind to it. And this is my message to South Africans as well, is don't feel overwhelmed by negativity, because there's many solutions. You have a solution. If you don't have a solution, just relax and think about one. It will come to you. We're all creative. Like, we can all solve problems. We're all Homo sapiens, and we have survived for hundreds of thousands of years. So if we can survive that long, we can fix South Africa. Simple. Okay, not that simple, but I mean, you have value, you can help. Okay, you can come up with this idea, for example, like Italy got with the mafia. So basically, that's my, public choice and anti-corruption theory, 7%. Then social democracy, 5%. Conditional universal income through business grants, expanded public health, educational reforms, and digital welfare access. So here you have your Nordic models and Brazil under Lula da Silva. Now, I would like to say more so that this is 5%. I would like to say more social democracy, but South Africa can't really afford bigger grants than we're already giving. Because we're already struggling to fix to balance the budget. The budget has to be balanced. Maybe if we can get rid of corruption, there'll be a lot of. I would say, look, all the corruption, if we can actually, the previous theory, if we can fully do a full anti-corruption thing, if we can stop binary, and it won't happen, by the way, but because that's just how life works, but like, if we can, in a binary way, stop corruption tomorrow, we'll have so much extra cash, and then that can be put into like more social democracy, like, you know, get basically your grants and have a full national health system and stuff like that. But for example, South Africa has had, or like we want to, or I think it's already been passed, the National Health Initiative, the NHI, under, like, this was Ramaphosa's idea, and this would be our version, for example, of Obamacare. Now the biggest problem is corruption. Like, we have no idea what will happen to that money if we are taxed. And also efficiency, effectiveness, meritocracy, will it apply to the NHI? Because the NHI, if applied, will be a massive organization. It will be huge. And we can't do that yet. We don't have the mechanisms in place. We first need to go to like as I said, institutional economics at the 10% one I want. We first have to do that, like get the institutions strong, so there's no corruption, or that it's easy for the public to complain about it. Then we can do these nice things that the Nordics does. And I'm a big proponent of the Nordic models. What we can do, however, is the so-called Bolsa Familia, I guess in Portuguese. I took Portuguese for like a year at university, but I was very bad at it. So I forgot everything. The Bolsa Familia, so it's like the family package or a family deal or the family bag, something like that, was something that Lula brought out, which is like, it was like food stamps, but it included other things like basic medicine, basic housing, stuff like, or not basic housing, like it was a small kind of grant, but it was not money. It was like something like food stamps. But we can do that. Like if we can, and that will actually be very useful. Like if we can give every individual like a liter of oil, 5 kilograms of rice, 5 kilograms of like maize meal, 3 kilograms of chicken breast. If we can, and that it won't be that expensive, because we're talking about stuff that's very cheap. Even chicken breast isn't that expensive. The state can buy this, and the state can distribute it. And to make it easier, you can have like a specific tax that goes to this, like a food tax. And basically, you can even, to make it truly fair, you can distribute it amongst the entire population. And then, like, let's say the extremely rich people or well-off people can give it to their servants. Because for those of you who don't know, South Africa, we have servants working. If you're a high class, high middle class, upper middle class person, not even a rich person, just, no, dude, like actually middle class. If you're just a middle class person, you have like a domestic servant, maybe even have two, like one working in your garden once a week and one coming to clean your house every week. If you are upper middle class or lower income, high class, you have them there 7 days a week. Then if you get this Bolsa Familia, you just give it to them, and they can use this or dispose of it in any way they wish. Whether they sell it or use it themselves or give it away as gifts, they can do it. So, this is one way, and it also brings in the mentality of we are all treated in the same way when it comes to state grants. The proponents of this would be Olof Palme and Anthony Crossland. I love the Nordic states, but we can't do that. Then behavioral economics, about 3%. So why? This creates incentivized training, particularly budgeting, public dashboards, and rate your leaders features that basically nudges accountability because of behavioral designs, like psychology. The key thinkers for this is Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein. Basically with psychology, you go and you analyze what people want, like Maslow's hierarchies of needs, like what stimuli people react to when they're placed under certain conditions. For example, when you place rats in a cage, like how long does it take for alpha male to emerge? Like how does the alpha male treat other members of the community under certain conditions? And well, these are just stupid examples. Like behavioral economics, like what's a good example? I read a book about it. Oh yes, I remember, like Black Friday, when everything is on sale. It's really not on sale. You're actually paying more money on that day. You're being tricked by companies. But you can use behavioral economics in a positive way. So, for example, you can get, with a massive rollout of an internet program, where you can get people to put up the budget. You get normal civilians to basically think about the budget, and at the very least, you don't need to apply that immediately, because that may be foolish, because not everyone is an economist. In fact, most of the people are not economists. I am not, yet I'm making a video about it. But at least you as a political leader can then see what people want. It will affect your behavior. And that's all I can say about that. And then lastly, Marxism or Marxist economics, 2%, 2% of my model. So why? Use it or lose it for land policy, suspicion of state capture, anti-nepotism stance, and reform. But no nationalization or class warfare rhetoric. So, look, with Marxism, everything gets what's that thing? I'm not Karl Marx was a brilliant economist, but his ideas were kind of stupid. It's an interesting way. It's an interesting place to find yourself in. Karl Marx, by the way, died in poverty in London, which is sad. Which is sad considering how well known he is. If Karl Marx could have a crowdfunding website even today, he would have a lot of money. Just like if he said, "Oh, I'm Karl Marx, I'm living in such poverty," he will make a couple of $1 million by getting donations from fans. Now. We spoke about a lot about land in South Africa. Now, a big problem, and you can't get away from it, is fallow land in South Africa. Fallow land happens under two circumstances. When it is a white farmer who just feels he doesn't want to invest in it for various reasons, and it's being unproductive, especially it's less probable to happen to arable land, but it can happen to arable land. The second one is where a farm has been handed over to the original black inhabitants from which it was stolen, but they don't do anything with it, either because they are not educated agriculturalists, or they don't know any suppliers in Europe or China to hook it up with. They don't have internet. There's a million, or lack of state support. There's a million reasons they cannot use the land. But then you should have a use it or lose it policy under Marxism. If you want to run a Marxist model, fine. But then remember, was it everyone? Those of you who are Marxist will know this saying: to the best of your capacity, you will receive something. I don't know, but it's like you should try as hard, like ideally under Marxism, like you should try as hard as you can to the best of your ability, and then you should receive your fair share. So, like let's say someone who works in a coal mine. This is like a very stupid example. It's like very old school. This is all I can think of with Marxism because it's so old, and it's failed a long time ago. It failed like 30 years ago. So essentially, there is no more examples left of it. So that's why I'm talking about the coal mine. But let's say it's obvious that a coal miner should receive more food than an accountant. Because when the accountant sits all the day in front of a computer, he or she burns less calories than a miner. So even although the accountant does, let's say, performs a cognitively higher like functionality than the coal miner needs what he needs. He needs more calories. So you give more stuff to the coal miner, it's more dangerous. Like the probability of the coal miner, the accountant's going to live longer than the coal miner because the probability of the coal miner dying in a accident is higher. So because of that, the coal miner should be the coal miner will have a lower life expectancy. To make up for this, at least give the guy, make him go on retirement earlier. Like he can retire at 50, or give him a holiday house next to the ocean. In South Africa, next to the sea, a holiday house would be ideal. Like, I mean, imagine the Marikana miners, instead of being massacred, were given holiday houses. Like you would not have like this rancor that you have if like people had basic needs. If every South African, and this is something you can't take away. Okay, well, this is like idealistic. But if every South African had a swimming pool, a BMW, a 3-bedroom apartment in a safe area, if they can send their kid to a private school, there will be zero crime in South Africa. Yes, you'll get obviously the jealous husband who kills the wife now and then, but for the rest, you won't get crime because it won't exist. Crime only exists in countries with like a high Gini coefficient. So crime won't exist in South Africa then. With Marxism, the jealousy goes away, at least in theory. Like you still have like the party bosses. The party bosses are always better off. But in general, there's so few party bosses that you don't really see them. And because you don't see them, like people don't get jealous. Okay, but this is like, okay, I'm thinking now specifically about the Soviet Union, like where if you're a party boss, your daughter goes to, let's say, a private school. However, the peasant in the countryside doesn't know about this. If he doesn't know about this, it doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist, he or she is not jealous. And then Marxism is beneficial. Because, those people who are just like, and sometimes full disclosure, even I'm like that. You think that, okay, it's not about inequality shouldn't be important. It should be, anti-poverty. Anti-poverty should be number one. However, right now I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about inequality in the stance that in the way that we work as a species. Like as a species, you want to out-evolve your competitor. Even if we're social, like social beings, you want to out-evolve your competitor. You want to see, because you don't know when he's going to turn on you, he or she. Like, so you want to get even more. If you're Elon Musk, you want to be even more rich. You want to have even more power. And it will be clear to you if you see who was the winner of Trump versus Musk. You know, some say money is power, but, you know, power is power. Like, what's it? Those of you who have watched Game of Thrones, that's when I love that scene when, yeah, that character of Littlefinger tell Queen Cersei something, blah blah blah. When he accuses her of incest and saying he said something about power, and then she got her bodyguards to almost kill him, and then she's like, no, power is power. And you know, that's how it works. And what was my train of thought? Basically, yeah, so you can get predatory elites. John Smith, the father of economics, said it, that people will meet in rooms and form cartels. You know, that's why you need, getting back to the ordoliberalism of the Germans, at the very least you need anti-cartel behavior. However, Marxism goes to the forefront, where not only does it break down a cartel, it basically it destroys it. It destroys the concept of ownership. You know, so there is no more predators. Because let's be frank, there's many capitalists who act as predators. There's no better word for them. Like, what was that farmer bro, that Shkreli, that Albanian American who bought this, not a pharmacy, this like pharmaceutical company, and just hiked the price of the one product by 1,000%. They are predators, let's be clear. And Marxism basically destroys that. So you have no more predators. You have your party bosses, and they're the alphas. But like the predators, like that class, that part of that segment of the triangle gets destroyed, so, which is beneficial. You can't deny it. Then also talking about triple BEE again. Triple BEE for me, I know very well it tries to address inequality, but some of it relies on trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics is actually a neoliberal idea. It's not a socialist idea. Trickle-down economics is a neoliberal idea, and it doesn't work. Like, if you have, I know money rotates in the economy, and you'll know it as well. Like, you pay tax, the government gives it as a grant to a poor person. The poor person goes to a supermarket. He spends money in the supermarket. The supermarket makes a profit. Like, you're a shareholder in the supermarket. You get some money back, blah, 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 whatever. Unless you're just a compulsive spender, then you're not doing very well. But trickle-down economics doesn't work. If I give you $1 billion, the probability of you distributing it fairly between all of your friends, or let's say all of your acquaintances and all of your full extended family, is very low. Like, those of you who will say yes to this kind of behavior, that you will do this, you're outliers. Or you haven't properly sit in a room for half a day contemplating and meditating what you will do with $1 billion. Trickle-down economics doesn't work. Rich people don't get rich by giving money away. That's just logic. And I know a guy who is like that. Fair enough. This guy has worked for what he has got, and he's very intelligent, and he's an outlier. And he's like, he worked very hard to get what he got. He's very smart. He's very good with people. He doesn't give money away. Like, basically, he paid for his brother's education, and he helped his mother here and there. But basically, he gets bombarded by cash requests from his extended family, but he told me, it's parasitic because it's never ending. So he basically keeps that money. Now, that's just one person. The billionaires will be even more stingy. Yes, I know, like, they have philanthropical ventures, and some of them give scholarships, and some of them are investors in small business. You do get such people, but it's a small fraction of their total business. If, like, Mark Zuckerberg builds a large school in every city in the Congo or every town in the Congo, and like adds computers and adds a swimming pool in a basketball court, Mark Zuckerberg's fortune will decrease so much that Facebook may not become competitive anymore. I don't know if that is true. I haven't looked at the numbers. But the thing is, you will no longer be competitive. What I'm trying to say is Marxism in this sense works. And it's actually the opposite of triple BEE, broad-based black economic empowerment. And now apparently they want to make it even more, nativist or more nationalistic, like by expanding it, and all of it is based on trickle-down economics, which won't work. So you need to always be effective, efficient, meritocratic, make something optimal, get the best creatively destructive solution, and these are the things that you need to do. But you can't have, let's say, if you're going to the reason I only use 2% of Marxism in my model is that if you're going to wholesale nationalize things, it's not necessarily going to go well for you. I know here and there Marxism had good runs. Like at the beginning of the Soviet Union, they took away these ridiculously large farms of the Russian nobility, and they did the same in Cuba, and they nationalized. Those things worked, okay? But Venezuela, they nationalized oil. Zimbabwe, they nationalized all the arable land, and it didn't work. So you don't necessarily. It's not a guaranteed outcome of. You don't have with Marxism. You don't have a guaranteed outcome of success. Okay, you can say the same about neoliberalism, but the thing is, there's way more examples of Marxism failing than succeeding. I know Marxism works kind of okay in Cuba. I've been to Cuba, and I want to make a video about it, but it works a bit there. And initially it worked a bit in Iraq, and it worked initially a bit in Algeria. All the other places were just disasters. North Korea, total clusterfuck. They will never recover. Zimbabwe, Venezuela to recover 50 years, if not longer. So it's never going to be fixed. And class warfare in rhetoric, with Marxism can become a race war. So if you implement land reform in South Africa, fine. Okay, that's a good thing. We need land reform. But you can't make it a race thing. You have to be very careful whether you do it in marketing or a PR campaign or whatever. You can't make it a race thing. You have to make it a poverty thing. You know, like you have to say, okay, we want to decrease the GNI, the Gini coefficient, so we need land reform. Say that, you know, as opposed to you're a land thief. You're a pink pig land thief, you know, get off my fucking land. Okay, the overwhelming majority of South Africans won't say that because we're nice people. But like, if you're going to implement Marxism, at least do it with a very good PR campaign. 2% of my idea has Marxist ideas. Frantz Fanon, I know nothing about Frantz Fanon. I haven't even read a book, but what it comes down to is that Africa is essentially, and black Africans in particular, even in the New World, like Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamaica, Brazil, the US obviously, and in Africa in particular, has been brutalized by Europeans. So there has to be, and you can see the marks, you can see the scars of this everywhere still. Like, for example, Brazilian capoeira is a fighting art. It's a martial art from Brazil. This was made by black African slaves to defend themselves, not from each other, to defend themselves from brutalist slave owners. Okay, so there has to be, what I think Frantz Fanon said is there has to be a restitution for black people because it's fair, if you look at the history. So white people need to accept that there has to be, in a new South African economic model, there has to be restitution. You cannot go around it. And black people, or well, let's just say the hard left, has to accept that because of the current inefficiencies, there has to be some neoliberalism. For the rest, as I said in my model, we need creative distraction. Every South African needs to be as creative as they possibly can and come with new solutions, talk to one another, start implementing, have various experiments going, identify the best experiments, keep your ego low, try not to be super alpha, find like the best leader, consensus maker possible, you know, vote for centrist parties who will a centrist party is more likely to do these kinds of things than a party on the hard left or the far right. The DA won't be able to do this. The DA won't grow South Africa's economy at 5%. I promise you. Vote for them. Vote them in and see. This video will age well because I can guarantee you the DA won't get 6% economic growth, even 5%. They won't get it. Maybe they won't even get 3%. The converse is also true. I promise you, the EFF will never, if the EFF MK becomes government, they will never get 6% economic growth. This video will age well. It's only when you vote for centrist parties like BOSA, Build One South Africa, what's the other one? Action South Africa, UIM something. It's that other guy, now and then he appears on Business News in South Africa. He's very funny. He's got cancer now, unfortunately, but please let me remember his name before the end of this video. I forgot it. But like, essentially this guy, these parties, these centrist parties, who gets only amalgamated 5% of the vote or less, these are actually the guys who can do it. No one else. They can give the far left and the hard left and the hard right can give contributions, sure. You know, there's place for the opinions of a Professor Aubrey Matsiki. There is a place for the opinions of Andrei Herzog, that right-wingish guy. They have, or Elon Musk, whatever. There's place for their opinions, but in general, like, we need a new solution. Okay, like, and this is just a proposal. I've done this to show you that a proposal is possible. Like a piece of art. Okay, you can go and draw like the figure of a man, and it'll depend. The outcome will depend on how good of an artist you are. Like maybe you will draw like me, just a stick figure with a smiley face. I'm not a visual artist, but maybe you are, and you draw this Leonardo da Vinci figure of a man. Okay, we won't all get it right. We don't all have the best ideas. Some ideas will be better than others. All I'm saying is, be creative, do creation, because only with creation, like, can we come up with a model that will work. And we should do this rather sooner. We should do this sooner rather than later, because if we wait, like, it gets worse. And I'm also thinking that if we oscillate too much, like the US actually, like the European Union, you're also not going to get an optimal solution. If it's like one election cycle, the DA wins, the next election cycle, the MK party wins, they're just going to put in their own stupid like policies every time they win. It will not work. The people will be unhappy and vote for the opposite party. Get it right the first time and vote for a centrist party. You know, the centrists can obviously also fail as well. I'm not saying, like probably what I told you now, or not probably, like maybe I'm right, but like there's a possibility that I'm totally wrong. However, put it like, this is an idea. You also have ideas, and like make videos, like talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your community, write letters to the newspaper, find your local councilman or councilwoman for your area where you live. Tell them you want A, B, C, D, E. Ask them questions. Ask them where's the money for this and this. You promised this, where is it? Like, hold people accountable. And then we can start this thing going, because the government won't do this for us. We as South Africans have to do it for ourselves. And this is not unique to South Africa. Well, okay, this is a video about the South African economy, so he's kind of... South Africa is unique. But for those of you from different countries with populations, with problems, you can also be effective. Don't fall for this stupid narrative that there's like some crazy cabal that controls you or whatever. If enough North Korean people decide they want to overthrow their government, they can. If enough Americans decide they want a sustainable economy and environment, they can. Like, you can do, like, it's in the Bible actually, like, you can do anything that you imagine with, this is what God gives you. And this is like basically a metaphor for saying that we don't know. Jordan Peterson said it as well. I'm not a massive fan of Jordan Peterson, but he has some wisdom. We don't really know where human potential ends. So try your best and please come up with solutions. If you can comment like your economic solution for South Africa, it will be great. And please don't come with a stupid one, like come with one that will work. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.